Hello everyone and welcome to part 2 of the portrait project that I'm working on of this fantasy soldier. If you haven't seen part 1, I'll put a link to it up above and that way you can take a look at it as well. So this is part 2 and I'm basically picking up exactly where I left off. So what I've got here is in Rebelle 3 and I have everything drawn out and kind of roughed in for where I want it. And then so the next thing I'm going to do is start adding in some painting, some textures and stuff to kind of start building this in layers and taking advantage of Rebelle's watercolor engine. So I've got it all kind of sketched out here and decided what I wanted to do is make a copy and play around with it. Originally which you saw right there, was I duplicated it by accident, but I meant to make a layer above it. And then onto this layer, I want to paint some texture. So what I'm using is the watercolor brush and throwing some paint on there, almost like paint splatters, and letting those kind of run. If you look in the upper right corner, you'll see that little blue dot and line going down. That means I have the canvas tilted down so that it'd be like holding my paper almost vertical and letting the watercolor take advantage. Now the layer is quote unquote dry. And so that the watercolor isn't running as much, and because I wanted to see what effect it would have, and then try and see what I thought of it. But I liked it, merged it down a little bit, and then dry, so that way again I'm working on a dry canvas to go from, sort of, or dry paper. So I switched to pencil tool here, and the next thing I wanted to do was try and find a light color to start sketching in some of the details for where I want the metalwork to be. And so that's what I'm kind of doing here. I've got my rough shapes in there and it's my guidelines, and so from here what I'm doing is just drawing out the different details and trying to start planning those out. Again, not trying to get the final look, but just trying to get a more of a roadmap. And as I keep going, because again, this whole process is practice of building up details and building up different parts of it, different layers, and getting it in there. So starting to add in some of the metalworking here and some of the chased metal and putting it on there and trying to get a feel for how I want it to look as it wraps around the helm. And again, using several different references and stuff to look from. So one of the issues that I have when doing something like this is that I can get one side laid out, kind of sketched in for how I like it, to start building it in. But then for me, the hard part comes in trying to replicate that pattern on the other side. And that's kind of what this little pause was me thinking about, okay, how am I going to get this laid out over here so it looks the same? So that's what I'm trying to do here. And again, this is all practice and just trying to get the same look and feel. It doesn't have to be exact, because even in some really amazing armor, it's still rare for somebody to have an exact handmade thing on the other side. So even master artisans would have some issues with that. So it's just trying to get the same feel and the same repeating patterns over there, and then kind of go in and fill in some of the other details here and there. So, and not being afraid to loosely sketch it in and kind of get a feel for it. So that's what I'm doing here, is trying to figure out, okay, how would this lay, how would this line continue, and where would the next piece be that would match up, and trying to define it a little bit more and then play around with it. So that's what I'm doing here. And again, just free forming it and trying to get something I think looks cool. So knowing that eventually I will go back and change this again. Again, this is just the roadmap for what I'm doing. And that's the great thing about digital. I'm not wasting anything here. I'm not messing anything up. If I got something on there that I really don't like, I can Control Z or I can erase it and not mess with the original picture. One thing I'm doing here as well is I try to not work in a huge amount of layers. So you'll notice this is all on this same layer that I'm working on. So usually if I'm doing a separate layer, it's because I want to try something and make sure that I really don't mess up what I'm doing. So I'll do that, but these are all same layer. So I wanted to just kind of keep it going and push myself to not use the Control Z as much as I could, but always knowing that, hey, if I need to, it's there. So again, just trying to just, get it all in and taken care of, so that way it's all posted on there and looks good. So again, trying to go with what I have under there for shadows and so forth, so that way I can kind of use that as my roadmap. Just start kind of thinking, okay, where do I want this to be? How do I want it to, fold up onto something or be laid out, and try and get that look of it. And one of the things too I'm trying to do with my artwork is not worry so much about a super realistic look, but again, keep that impressionistic look of it, so that it's it tells the story, but it doesn't have to be a photograph. So because trying to do it the other way can just be really limiting for creativity. So that's what I'm working on here, is just trying to keep it loose. And so for this, I know I wanted to put a pattern here, so what I did was I sketched it out and then went in and erased out what I didn't want. So, but here's one of the issues with doing all in one layer. It erased the texture I had underneath it. So I knew it was something I was going to have to build back up later. And I figured, hey, it's all more part of the layers, more part of the process. So, keep doing it. Now, Rebelle has kind of a weird straight rule kind of thing, where you use the shift to draw it out like that. I like Artrage's a little better because you can just use kind of control, and the same thing for a little bit with Photoshop, but I kind of like Artrage as far as being able to do the ruler there. But this isn't too bad. I'm getting used to it more and more. It just takes a little getting used to the way it's set up. So, but trying to lay in that nose breaker and kind of get it figured out for how I want it to look and refine it some more. So doing that here, and then again bouncing around a little bit, trying to say, okay, what do I like, what do I not, how do I want to lay it out more to get kind of that feel and everything. And so right here what I'm doing is I decided I wanted to add some texture to the nose breaker. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, if this has an edge to it, how do I want to lay that out? I thought it'd be nice to have kind of an edge to it and stuff, so kind of sketching that. So remember, the key thing with all of this is just play. Play around, relax, enjoy it. And again, if you're doing digital stuff like this, you have full license to do it. You're not wasting paper, you're not wasting anything, because you can't even say you're wasting time, because any mistakes I make, I learn from them. So I just keep going and doing more stuff and messing with it. So, and this is kind of one of the things I kind of like how this turns out. I may go back in and tweak it some more. I don't know, but it's a good start, So. Again, just pattern, just texture, just hints of different things. One thing I do want to get better at is maybe doing some different knot work and stuff and playing around with that. So this is just me trying to give it a little bit of that feel, and which again, it's okay. It's a good start. It's obviously not perfect, but you know, like I said, I'm not so much going for perfection. I'm just going for something that tells a story. So the story that I have is that I want it to have a little bit of you know, background and a little bit of texture to it, a little bit of interest. Oh, and in case I didn't mention before, which I don't think I did, this is also sped up twice as much from what the original was. So this took me a little over 30 minutes to do, about 35, I think, 32, 35, somewhere in there. And so now I've sped it up so that way you can watch it. And I'll post the original as well, so that way if you want to spend some time with it, you can. So I kind of defined all that, and you can kind of see how it's starting to come together from laying in some of the texture and getting a feel for it, for where you're going to go with it. And these are all just little things that I like, that I'm starting to like doing. So, and just build one upon another. So. So in here, I wanted to get more of an idea of kind of how the metal might reflect eventually. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, is laying in. And again, trying to follow some of the highlights and stuff that I've sketched in before to get a feel for it. And then start kind of cleaning up the edges and realizing that some of that doesn't look like it could actually be sitting on his head. So that's kind of what was going on there. Trying to sketch back in over it so I don't erase the background. So I just grabbed the color from the background and then sketched over it. So, which I think, you know, again, added to more of the look. And here I wanted to try and figure out my shadows for the nose breaker and stuff, and try and make this look like it's starting to sit on its head. So sketching around with it. And I do like using the pencil and marker in Rebelle. I didn't at first, but I am starting to like it more and more. One thing I do wish that you could do with the pencil in Rebelle was that if it had the option to, because the pencil is a dry media, if you look over there to the left, there's no water value underneath it, and which means it's a dry medium, so it doesn't really react with the water stuff. I do, and it might do this, I just haven't found it yet, but I do really wish that it had the ability to be like a watercolor pencil. So that way you could draw it on there and then bleed it out from there. Which you can kind of do with the one brush up there, the blender brush. You kind of get the same look, but it's not quite the same as having the engine do it. So again, remembering to always kind of step back and look at the drawing and painting as a whole and kind of say, okay, where can I tweak it? What can I change? And that's what I'm doing here. And trying to, again, get a feel for how it looks, how it's coming together. Because if you just stay zoomed in and only work on one spot, and I've done that with you know, quote unquote real paintings, as far as like offline paintings, canvas paintings and stuff, you get so focused on one section, you just forget about the rest of the painting. So you end up having this one really well done section, and the rest of it's really not. So I've definitely done that. So right here, I wanted to start laying in some of the highlights for the skin and for the flesh tones. And so that's kind of what I'm doing here, trying to sculpt around the face a little more to get kind of a feel. And try and start figuring out where I want things like the mustache and all that to actually live. So, and it still kind of has that zombie look, you know, because the underpainting is still showing through so much. So, but hopefully I'll keep building on that and take away some of that. But it's kind of cool looking like this. It almost makes me think of like a stone carving or something. So, you know, kind of getting to the point where this is going to start wrapping up for this section, and I hope to work on this some more tomorrow or the next day. It'll probably end up being the next day, but I will post it again soon. Let me know what you think so far. How do you like how it's progressing? Is there something you'd like to see on it? Something that you're hoping I'll do with different stuff? You know, I'm enjoying the process. It's fun. I like creating it, and I like how it's going, and being able to use more traditional techniques for doing this, and still getting that painterly loose feeling. So, but yeah, make sure to leave a comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Subscribe if you haven't, and definitely turn on the notifications for the bell, so that way you can get notified when part 3 goes up and so forth. You know, this is the part right here where I'm still not sure exactly what I'm going to do as far as for like the lower armor, but I'm kind of getting there and figuring it out. Again, taking the marker tool and using it to kind of soften in and add highlights where I think I want to put them, and try and figure that out. So I guess that's really about it. So let me know what your thoughts are, and I'm going to work on the next piece tomorrow or the next day and get that uploaded too. So I appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching it, and I hope to hear from you guys soon.